Would you forgive your own aunt if you found out she sold you to a man who hurt you every single night? What if the whole country called that man a hero while you cried into your pillow in his mansion? And what if the person who finally saved you was a stranger in a uniform who believed you when your own family didn't know the truth? My name is Sylvia, and this is not a movie. It's not something I read online. This is the life I actually lived. I grew up in a small village where people talked about my aunt like she was an angel from the city. The kind of woman who came home with fancy clothes and stories about rich people and opportunities. For years, I heard my mother say, "If not for my sister, I don't know what we would do," and I believed that. I believed my aunt loved us, that she wanted the best for me, that if she said something was good, it had to be good. You know what I mean. The funny thing about trust is that by the time you realize you gave it to the wrong person, the damage is usually already done. Where I come from, we didn't talk about dreams like college or careers. We talked about rain coming on time, so the crops wouldn't die. We talked about whether we would eat twice that day or just once. My father died when I was still little, and my mother, Mrs. Kendra turned into this warrior woman who carried baskets on her head, worked other people's farmland, took any small job she could find, and somehow kept 4 kids alive on almost nothing. I'm the oldest, then my 3 little brothers, then my baby sister Mary, who followed me around like a shadow. People in our village knew we were poor, but they also knew something else. We were respected. My mother never begged, she traded work for food. She paid our debts late, but she paid them. Still, no matter how hard she worked, we were always one bad harvest away from hunger. So when my aunt, the famous city lady, Auntie Gladys, came to visit one dusty afternoon, the whole house felt like it shifted. She walked in wearing perfume, a bright dress that didn't look like anything you'd wear near a farm jewelry that clicked when she moved her hands. The neighbors peeked through windows, and the kids followed her like she was a celebrity. That evening, we all sat on wooden stools in our little living room, the air heavy with the smell of kerosene from the lamp. And she said the words that changed everything. "There is a job in this city," she announced, crossing her legs like she owned the world, in the house of a very important man, a billionaire, a chief, a good man. His name is Chief Harrison. He needs a maid, someone young, humble, willing to learn. And he will pay very, very well. Then she wrote the amount with her finger on the table. My mother gasped, covered her mouth, and stared at me like she was seeing a miracle. That number was not just money. It was school fees for my brother's medicine, when someone got sick, food bought from a store instead of begged from a neighbor. It was a roof that didn't leak when it rained. To us, it was everything. In that moment, I wasn't thinking about danger or exploitation or anything dark. I saw my little sister's torn dress, my brother's bare feet, the lines on my mother's face, and I thought, if I can take this job and help them, how could I say no? So of course I said yes. I was 17, and leaving the village felt like stepping out of one world into another one I couldn't even imagine. The morning I left, I stood at our front door with 2 bags my mother had packed and repacked 100 times. My heart beating so fast, it almost hurt. Neighbors passed by and said, "Safe journey. Sylvia, don't forget us. When you're rich and..." I smiled shyly, pretending I knew how to act like someone with a future. My brothers tried to be tough, but I saw the tears in their eyes. Mary clung to the edge of my skirt and whispered, "Please remember us," like I was going somewhere that might erase her from my mind. My mother hugged me so tightly I could feel her ribs. "My daughter, be strong," she said quietly into my ear. "Listen to your aunt. Do your best and don't forget who you are. God will be with you." If it were you, and someone offered you a chance to lift your whole family out of poverty, would you have walked away? The bus ride to the city felt endless. I sat by the window, clutching my bag to my chest, watching the world change. The fields grew smaller as the buildings grew taller. The silence of the village turned into the constant noise of traffic horns and voices, and I felt like I was shrinking, while everything outside got bigger. My aunt talked loudly beside me the whole time, pointing out places, making jokes, reminding me for the 1,000th time to obey and keep my mouth shut. "You will love it there," she kept saying. "They have light every night, water from taps, food you've never even seen before. This is your chance, Sylvia, don't mess it up." For 1 week before I moved into Chief's mansion, I stayed with her in her small city apartment. It wasn't huge, but to me, it felt fancy. A real sofa, a fridge, a TV that actually worked. That week was like boot camp for being a maid in a rich house. She showed me how to use the washing machine, how to iron clothes properly, how to fold sheets, how to scrub a floor without leaving streaks. She made me practice making beds until you could bounce a coin off the blanket. And every night before we slept, she gave me the same speech. Rich people don't like noise. They don't like questions. You keep your head down and do your work. Don't gossip. Don't complain. Don't argue with anyone. If they say jump, you ask how high. Understand, I nodded. I told myself it was normal, just strictness, just part of learning. That little twist of discomfort in my stomach, I pushed it away. Then came the day we drove up to Chief Harrison's house. The first thing I saw was the gate. It was taller than our village hall, solid and intimidating, with armed guards on both sides in dark uniforms, holding guns like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. When the gate opened, it felt like a mouth swallowing us whole. The compound inside was something out of a movie. Perfect grass, trimmed like someone measured every blade. Tall trees arranged so neatly it looked designed on a computer. The house itself was so big and shiny that in some angles it almost looked like it was made of gold. My heart felt like it dropped to my feet. "This is it," my aunt whispered, smiling like she had just delivered me to heaven. "Your new world." Inside, the air smelled like polished wood and expensive perfume. Guards were everywhere, some walking, some standing still at corners, some just watching. Maids and cleaners moved like ghosts, fast, and quiet eyes lowered. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was tense, like the house itself was listening. We were led into a huge living room with white couches and a giant TV on the wall. And there he was, Chief Harrison, sitting in a leather chair that looked more like a throne. He wore a spotless white shirt, dark trousers, and a gold watch that caught the light every time he moved his hand. I'd seen rich people on TV, but never this close. "She's the girl I told you about, Chief," my aunt said, her voice extra sweet. "This is Sylvia." He looked at me slowly from my head down to my shoes, then back up to my face. His smile was small, controlled. "Welcome to my house, Sylvia," he said. "I've heard a lot about you." I lowered my head slightly. "Thank you, sir," I said, trying not to let my voice shake. He stood and held out his hand. I put mine in his, expecting a normal handshake, but his palm stayed around mine, a little too long. A little too tight. I felt something weird in my chest. A warning, maybe. But I told myself, he's just important. This is how important people act. I wish I'd listened to that warning. A female staff member came and took me to my room. Small but clean, with a bed, a wardrobe, and a little TV. To a village girl, used to sharing a mat on the floor with her siblings, that room looked like luxury. I sat on the bed and listened to my aunt's loud laughter echoing from downstairs, telling myself everything was going to be fine, that I just had to work hard and be humble and everything would be okay. The next morning, I started my first full day as a maid in a billionaire's house. I woke up before the sun washed quickly, tied my hair back, and got to work. I dusted, swept, mopped, scrubbed, washed dishes, cleaned windows, wiped tables, polished things so shiny I could see my face in them. The house had more rooms than our entire village school. Every time I thought I was done, another room appeared. When Chief came downstairs, I stood straighter than I'd ever stood in my life. "Good morning, sir," I said. "What would you like for breakfast?" He gave me that gentle smile again. "Just coffee," he replied. Simple enough. But my hands were shaking so badly when I picked up the cup that I thought for sure I was going to spill it. Somehow I didn't. I placed it in front of him and stepped back, waiting like my life depended on whether or not he liked it. He finished the cup, said nothing, and went back upstairs to change. Then he left with some of the guards, and the rest of the day was just cleaning, until my feet felt like they were on fire. By the time night came, I could barely keep my eyes open. I waited in the kitchen, because I'd been taught you never go to bed before your boss has eaten. When he finally returned home, he looked tired, and his voice was quiet. "You can go to sleep," he said. "I don't want dinner tonight." It felt like I had just been given a gift. I bowed, muttered a "yes, sir," and went to my room. The moment my head hit the pillow, I fell into a heavy, deep sleep. Then something touched my arm. At first, I thought it was part of a dream. I was too tired to move. The touch came again, slower this time, sliding up to my shoulder, and my whole body jerked awake. I opened my eyes. Chief was standing right next to my bed. For a second, I was just confused. I mean, your brain doesn't immediately know what to do when your billionaire boss is suddenly in your room in the middle of the night. Then the confusion turned into fear so fast, it almost made me dizzy. He spoke softly like someone calming a child. "It's okay," he murmured. "Don't be afraid. Just relax. I'll be done soon, and you can go back to sleep." That's when I understood. I tried to sit up, but my muscles felt like they'd turned to water. I tried to say no, tried to tell him to stop, that this wasn't right. But my voice came out in tiny, broken pieces. When I glanced at the door, there was a guard standing there blocking the exit. His face blank, his eyes cold. Let me pause here and say this. I'm not going to describe every detail of what he did to me, because this is not a story for shock value, and I don't want to turn my pain into some kind of entertainment. Just know that he took what he wanted, and I couldn't stop him. He had power. I had none. When it was over, the guard stepped into the room, placed some money on the small TV stand by my bed, and leaned closer to me. His voice was low, but it cut through me like a knife. "If you tell anyone," he said, "we will kill your family. Not we will hurt you. Not we will send you back." My family. That night, lying on that bed, in a room that suddenly felt like a prison, I realized my life was not my own anymore. I wasn't just a worker in a rich man's house. I was something else, something I didn't even want to name. If it were you, and someone held that kind of threat over the people you love, what would you have done? Would you scream? Would you run? Or would you swallow your pain to keep them safe? The next day, my aunt came to visit. She walked into my room carrying bright, fancy gift bags on both arms, her voice loud and sweet. "Sylvia, my love," she sang, "I heard you did so well yesterday. Look at you already living like a big girl in the city. I brought some things for you." She laid the bags on the bed, pulled out dresses, shoes that sparkled soaps, that smelled like flowers, snacks I hadn't seen since I'd watched TV through a neighbor's window. It looked like a party. I looked at the gifts. Then I looked at her, and something inside me cracked. I burst into tears, not the quiet one, tear down the cheek kind you see in movies. My whole body shook, and I couldn't control the sobs. I covered my face with my hands and just cried. "Auntie, I want to go home. I choked out between sobs. Please take me back to my mother. I don't want to stay here. For a moment, her smile froze. The warmth drained from her eyes just for a second, before she forced it back. Oh, my daughter, she said, sitting next to me and wrapping her arm around my shoulders. Why are you talking like this? Don't you know how proud your mother is going to be? Don't you know how many girls wish they had this chance? I pulled away confused, staring at her face like maybe I was talking to a stranger and not my own aunt. She glanced at the money the guard had left the night before, then at the gifts on the bed, then back at me. I heard he gave you some money last night. She continued. That is a blessing. This is how you build your life so you can become rich and help your family. Not by staying in that village and wasting your life on the farm. You should be grateful I recommended you. People begged me for this opportunity, you know. It hit me then. Hard. Cold. She knew. She knew what happened at night. And she wasn't horrified. She wasn't angry. She was calling it a blessing. My aunt. The woman my mother trusted with my life had not just sent me to a job. She had delivered me into something else entirely. And she expected me to smile and say thank you. Let me tell you that realization still stings. I wanted to shout at her, to scream. How could you do this to me? How could you lie to my mother? How could you sell me like a bag of rice? But the words stayed stuck in my throat. Fear still had its hands around my neck. My aunt sighed like I was a stubborn child complaining about chores. You will thank me later, she said. Then her voice dropped, her eyes sharpening. And listen carefully. Do not tell your mother what is happening here. Chief is a powerful man. If you talk too much, he will do what he promised. You remember what he promised. Don't you? I remembered. How could I forget? Before she left, she stood at the door, brushed her hands together like she'd finished some big business deal, and said, "Make sure you take very good care of Chief for me." Then she walked out, closing the door as gently as if she was putting a child to sleep. Yeah, that happened. When the door clicked shut, I slid off the bed onto the floor and cried until my throat hurt, and there were no tears left. My chest felt tight, my body felt dirty, and my heart felt like someone had stepped on it and walked away. Time became strange after that. Days blurred into each other. I cleaned and cooked and served, moving around the house like a ghost. I watched Chief's friends come in their big cars, laughing loudly, clapping him on the back. I heard them joke about how lucky he was to have such a fresh girl in the house. Sometimes they looked at me like I was a piece of meat. Sometimes they praised my aunt for knowing exactly what he liked. By day I was invisible. By night I was trapped. I thought about running more times than I can count. But every door had a guard. Every gate had a gun. And every time I thought about it, I heard that sentence in my head. We will kill your family. The only place I felt even a tiny bit free was in my mind. I learned how to go somewhere else in my head when he came into my room at night. I would stare at the ceiling and imagine being back in the village, sitting by the fire, listening to my brothers argue about something stupid, Mary's head on my lap. I trained myself not to cry, not to react, because it didn't help. It only made him talk more. If you've never been that powerless, I hope you never are. If you have, then you know exactly what I mean. One morning I woke up, and something was different. The smell of food made me nauseous. My head pounded like a drum. My legs felt heavy, and climbing the stairs felt like I was dragging buckets of water tied to my ankles. I brushed it off as exhaustion pushed myself through the chores, told myself I just needed rest. But it didn't go away. That night when Chief came into my room out of habit, he paused. He touched my forehead, frowned. "You're burning," he said. Then he called one of the guards. "Bring the nurse, now." A nurse. A medical professional. Someone from outside this twisted little world. A tiny spark of hope lit up in my chest. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. The next time I opened my eyes, there she was. A woman in a neat white uniform, setting up a small silver case on the little table in my room. The guard was at the door as usual. No hospital room, no waiting area. Still the same walls, the same ceiling. That little spark of hope flickered. She smiled politely. "You're awake. Good. I'm just going to run some tests so I can give you the right medicine." "Okay." Her voice was soft, professional, almost kind. She checked my temperature, took my blood pressure, drew a little blood into small bottles, wrote notes on a clipboard. I watched her hands move quickly and efficiently, her perfume mixed with the sharp smell of alcohol wipes. Then she looked at one of the test results, and I watched her face change. First confusion, then shock, then something like worry. She looked again more slowly, her eyes scanning every line, like she hoped the numbers would rearrange themselves into something else. "What is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She forced a small smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just hold on," she said. "Let me call Chief." He came in a few minutes later, calm as always, like he didn't believe anything in his life could surprise him. The nurse held the papers close to her chest, took a breath, and said it. "She is 2 months pregnant." I swear I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. The room felt like it tilted. My skin went cold, my hands started shaking, my vision blurred. Pregnant. The word sounded far away and too close at the same time. Chief's face changed. The relaxed smile disappeared. His jaw clenched. His eyes went hard, like someone had flipped a switch. He didn't look at me. Not once. He looked at the nurse and said, "Take care of it. You know what to do." That was it. No discussion. No questions. Like he was talking about a stain on his shirt. I shook my head. "No, please," I whispered. "Please don't." The nurse came toward me with a syringe in her hand. "It will be fast," she said quietly, like she hated what she was doing, but was going to do it anyway. I tried to pull away, but I was too weak. The needle went into my arm, and within minutes, a wave of pain rolled through my body, twisting my insides, stealing my breath. I cried and screamed, but the sound felt trapped inside those walls. Nobody came. Nobody cared. I knew when it was over. You just know. Something inside me, something that had barely started, was gone. After that day, a part of me shut down completely. Time turned into this gray, endless thing. I still worked. I still answered yes, sir, and no, sir. I still cleaned and cooked and served, but inside I felt empty. I stopped even imagining escape. I prayed less for freedom and more for death. The pattern continued. If I got sick and the nurse showed up again, I knew what that probably meant. I don't even know how many times she came. I stopped counting. Let me tell you about the only moments that still felt like life to me. Phone calls with my mother. We didn't talk often because calls were expensive, but whenever I heard her voice, something in my chest woke up again. One day, she sounded especially happy. "Your aunt has been sending us money," she told me. "We bought rice beans, clothes for your brothers. We paid their school fees. We even fixed part of the roof. God will bless Chief Harrison for remembering us. He is a good man." That line hit me like a slap. A good man. I bit down on my lip so hard I tasted blood, just to stop myself from sobbing into the phone. "Yes, Mama," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. "He is generous. If you're listening to this, do you think that's fair? That someone can be celebrated as a savior in one place while quietly destroying someone in another? And both stories are true at the same time." Months passed. I don't know how many. I stopped marking time. Every day felt the same. Chores, fear, silence. Every night was the same dread, waiting for the door handle to turn. I honestly believed I would die in that house, in that room. and my family would never know who I had really become in their eyes, the girl who made it in the city. And then one day, something happened that I had stopped believing was possible. The world changed again. I was in my room folding clothes when I heard shouting downstairs. Not the usual voices, not laughter, not party noise. These were hard, commanding voices echoing through the corridors, like they owned the place. I froze, a shirt still in my hands. Then I heard it. Boots pounding on the floor, doors opening and closing, someone yelling orders, another voice yelling, hands where I can see them. I rushed to the window and pulled the curtain just slightly aside. Men in dark uniforms were pouring through the gate guns strapped to their sides, shiny badges glinting on their chests. Some went around the house, some straight through the front door. I saw 2 guards lying on the ground outside, hands on their heads. My first reaction wasn't joy, it was fear. Who are they? Are they here for him or for us? I stepped into the hallway and looked over the banister. From the top of the stairs, I could see more guards on the floor inside, officers moving from room to room, checking doors, shouting, "Clear and search everywhere." One of the men looked up and saw me. He walked toward the stairs with firm strides, eyes sharp, but not cruel. "Hey," he called. "You, who are you, and what are you doing here?" My mouth opened, but my voice didn't come out. My hands started shaking. Tears blurred my vision again. But this time, they weren't just from pain. They were from confusion, shock, a tiny spark of hope fighting with the enormous weight of fear. Another officer stepped forward. He was a little older, his face serious but kind. He raised his hand slightly, like he was trying not to scare me. "It's okay," he said in a calmer tone. "My name is Sergeant Josh. We're from a government agency. We've been investigating this place for a while. Just tell me the truth. Are you here willingly? Are you safe?" Safe. That word almost made me laugh. I shook my head slowly, tears spilling down my face. "I can't," I whispered. "He said if I talk, he will kill my family." Sergeant Josh looked at my face. Really looked like he was reading a book written in bruises you couldn't see. "Listen to me, Sylvia," he said, using my name like he'd known it forever. "If you tell me what is going on, I promise you, I will protect you, and I will protect your family. This is your chance. You don't have to carry this alone anymore." This was the twist I never saw coming. Not a nurse changing her mind. Not my aunt growing a conscience. A complete stranger in a uniform telling me the one thing no one else had told me in months, that I was safe enough to speak. Did I trust him right away? How could I? Every adult who had had power over me so far had used it against me. But there was something in his voice and his eyes that felt different. He wasn't rushing me. He wasn't acting like I was a problem to be solved or a tool to be used. He was treating me like a person. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. My heart pounded so hard it felt like I could see it in my chest. My mouth was dry. My brain screamed at me to stay silent. But something else whispered, "This may be your only chance." I took a breath that felt like it scraped the inside of my ribs, and I started talking. The words came in pieces at first. How my aunt had come to the village with promises. How she had brought me here, trained me to be silent. How the first night Chief came into my room. How the guard had threatened my family. How my aunt had called it a blessing and told me to be grateful. How the nurse came with her needles when I got sick. How the babies never stayed long enough to even be real in anyone's eyes but mine. I told him everything. He didn't interrupt. He didn't tell me to calm down. He didn't ask why I didn't scream louder or run sooner. He just stood there listening, his jaw tight, his eyes dark with anger. Not at me, but at what had been done to me. When I ran out of words, when my throat felt raw and my legs were shaking, he nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "You did the right thing. You are not going back into that house alone again. We will handle this." What happened after that moved fast. Officers swarmed the place now with a new purpose. They checked hidden rooms, opened locks, searched documents, talked to staff. They brought Chief out in handcuffs. He didn't look calm anymore. He was shouting, demanding to call his lawyer, calling names of politicians he knew, insisting they couldn't treat him like this. For the first time since I had met him, I saw something that gave me a strange satisfaction. He was scared. A while later, my aunt arrived, probably expecting another envelope full of money and a nice visit with her powerful friend. Instead, she stepped into a house full of officers' guards on the floor and her good man friend being shoved into the back of a police vehicle. For a moment, she looked completely lost. Then she saw me standing next to Sergeant Josh, and her face twisted. She started shouting that she was innocent, that she didn't know anything, that she had just helped her niece get a job. But the officers already had enough. Bank transfers, messages, records. They cuffed her too. She shouted my name then, like suddenly I mattered as her blood again. It was too late. News about the arrest spread like wildfire. TV, radio, social media. Suddenly, the man everyone respected was on every screen in handcuffs, and people were asking, how could this happen? How could someone like him do something like that? Back in the village, my mother heard the story. She heard that her daughter had been kept like a prisoner in a rich man's house. She heard that her own sister had known, that the money she'd thanked God for was soaked in my pain. She almost collapsed. She cried until her voice broke. Then she did the only thing a mother like her could do. She grabbed a small bag, locked the door of the house, and got on the first bus to the city. They had moved me to a safe place by then, a government-run center for victims, simple but secure. When she walked into that building, I was sitting in a small room with a counselor sipping tea I couldn't taste. I heard her voice in the hallway. The moment I saw her, I stood up so fast my chair almost fell over. Mama. We ran to each other like we were trying to erase the distance of all those months in one step. She held me like she thought I might disappear if she let go. I'm sorry, I kept saying the words, tumbling out with tears. I'm sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. She pulled back just enough to hold my face in her hands. No, my baby, she said, her own tears pouring down. I am sorry. I sent you there. I trusted my sister. I thought you were safe. I thought you were happy. I didn't know. There are some moments that no camera can fully capture. No news article can really explain. That moment, a mother apologizing to a daughter for something that was never her fault. That was one of them. Later, she tried to kneel in front of Sergeant Josh to thank him, but he stopped her immediately. Please, ma'am, stand up, he said, looking embarrassed. I just did my job. This is what we are supposed to do. Not every officer thinks like that. I know that. I got lucky. The court case took months. In that time, I stayed at the center, went to counseling. Slowly, started to understand that what happened to me wasn't my fault, even though there were nights I still felt like it was. I met other girls with stories that sounded frighteningly familiar. Different men, different houses, same pattern. The nurse testified. She told the court what she had done, how many times she had been called, how she felt trapped between her conscience and the money, and the pressure. I still don't know how to feel about her. Part of me hates what she did. Another part of me knows she was also inside that system, even if she had more power than I did. The staff talked. Some admitted they had suspected. Others claimed they knew nothing. The guards tried to save themselves, but their threats to me, their behavior, their messages caught up with them. At the end of it all, the judge sentenced Chief Harrison to life in prison. My aunt, too. Their reputations were ruined. Their money couldn't pull them out. Their names, once said, with respect in my village, became warnings. People tell me justice was served. Maybe it was on paper. But here's the part people don't like to talk about. Justice doesn't erase memories. It doesn't magically cure nightmares. It doesn't give me back the girl I was, when I stood at that village door with hope in my heart and 2 small bags in my hands. It doesn't bring back the babies I never got to hold or even properly think of as mine. I live in a different city now, in a small place where no one knows my story unless I choose to tell it. I'm learning skills, taking classes, trying to build a life that isn't defined by what he had or what my aunt chose. Some days I feel strong. Some days I feel like that girl in the small room again. Healing isn't a straight line. It's a messy, looping road with dips and turns and, yeah, sometimes U-turns. So why am I telling you this? Because this isn't just about one billionaire and one aunt and one girl from a poor village. It's about something bigger. It's about the way poverty can make people vulnerable to shiny promises. It's about how we glorify rich people without ever asking where their comfort comes from. It's about what happens when someone's whole life depends on trusting the wrong person. It's also about the people we don't see, the maids, the drivers, the nannies, the cleaners, the ones in uniforms who open doors for us and disappear into the background. We assume we know their story. They're lucky to have a job. But we don't really know what they go home to at night or what they have to survive to keep that paycheck. So let me ask you this. Do you think life in prison is enough for someone who uses their power to destroy lives like that? Do you think my aunt deserves forgiveness because she did it for the money? Or is there no excuse for selling your own blood? If it were you, and you were me, would you forgive her? Would you forgive him? Or would you just try to move on and never look back? I don't have all the answers. Some days I feel anger. Some days I feel numb. Some days I feel grateful just to be alive, to be able to tell this story with my own voice. What I do know is this: I am not just what they did to me. I am not just a victim. I am a person who survived something ugly and lived to talk about it. And if my story makes even one person pay attention to ask more questions, to look at the help in their house with real human eyes, then maybe it's worth opening all these old wounds. If you stayed with me till now, thank you for listening. I know this wasn't a light, easy story, and if it stirred something in you, that's okay. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think justice was really served in my case? Do you think our societies protect girls like me enough? Or do we look the other way when money and power are involved? Have you ever seen something that felt wrong but didn't know what to do about it? Tell me in the comments. Agree with me. Disagree with me. Argue, question. Share your own experience if you feel safe. These conversations are uncomfortable, but they need to happen. If this story made you think, hit like so more people see it. Subscribe if you want to hear more real stories told with honesty, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next one. And please, next time you walk past someone who cleans your building or serves your food or stands by a gate in a uniform, remember, they are not background characters. They have a whole story you know nothing about.